one thing that we are. It's late breaking, updated, and informative.
I don't know that we're really investigative, though.
Not very much investigative, but that's what we're going to get into right now. And like we mentioned before, we do have Tyler and Jeff on from OccupyKC.com. So that's the Kansas City version of Occupy Wall Street. Once again, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You guys are live streaming your movement in Kansas City. That's at justin.tv/OccupyKC with the hashtag, right? OccupyTogether.org is the umbrella for all of the different cities. Kelly told us 80 cities now getting on board with this movement. And you can get you guys at OccupyKC.com, and you're everywhere on the social media. So it shouldn't be hard to find you at all. Give me your spin on it. What's your twist on the Kansas City version? And Tyler, we'll go with you first. Like, what do you think you're out there for? What are you doing out there?
For me, I think it's about bringing the community back together, so we can share a common voice. Mm-hmm. Something that's been taken away from us. When
did the community split?
Well, I think it's been a long time thing. I mean, you can split communities between race, you can split communities between sexes and, sexual preferences. Mm-hmm. And then you can go down to like sport teams and, rivalries of that. There's a lot of divisions, but I think really 9/11 kind of put a lot of fear in America, and it made us really hesitant to connect with people because they made us feel like each person might be that, coming threat.
Yeah.
So I think this is really important that, people begin to break down those barriers and realize that everyone, is equal and, shares the same air and the same type of, blood, and that, there's no one better than the next, and that it's important to build support structures so that it's easier to, grow and enrich your lives rather than being burdened by, the pressures of life and money and jobs and kids, It's important to have support.
Well, first of all, I'm better. And second of all, let's talk about one of your points about the race, right? For the longest time, the blacks were oppressed. The African-American population, they rose up. They did the protest. They went out there and they marched, but they had an end game as far as they wanted the laws changed. And that was like they had articles. They say this is what we want done. We want the right to vote. We want this. We want that. I wasn't alive then, so I don't know. But I read about it somewhere. I watched a documentary.
Don't look at
somewhere.
me.
He was alive during the whole thing. So I guess the point that I would make is that they were organized. They protest just like you guys are protesting. However, they had a common goal. They had something that they wanted to accomplish. And from what I've gathered with Grimm and with Kelly just now and with Patrick last week is that it's a 1,000-headed monster. Nobody's actually heading up this movement. It's just something that's fun to do. Hey, I want to camp out for a month. Okay, fine. They're going out there and they're marching and they're pissed off, which by God, I'm pissed off too. Like we're in some bad times right now. But there's not like the one guy, or there's not the one thing. Like we want an amendment amendment for this. We want to change this. We want to change this. This there's no. It's just that we want to change, right? You want to bring the society together. You want which fantastic. But do you have like the one thing that you would like to happen? Is there a vote that we can do? Because we do have the right to vote. That is something that we can do.
I don't think the voting system creates equality, and a level playing field. I think if I would say one thing, it would be to give people back the access to the halls of power through a community movement.
Wow. What do you mean by that?
Just like they say, this is for the people, by the people. I don't know what friends or people of mine decided that we should go to these wars, or what for people that I know that we should bail out banks.
There were people that you voted in.
I didn't vote them in.
I know you didn't, but the majority did.
But they did. But see, you get 3 to 5 people that represent only a cross section of points of view, and the majority is not reached. There's not a consensus of the populace. There's just.
So would you suggest a change of the electoral college? Is there something you can say? Let's start small and let's do this first, and maybe we could bring in Jeff on this because you have an idea. You're the man with the plan.
Well,
Tyler's the guy with the dream.
I agree.
But you're the man with the plan.
I agree with that dream, and that dream is valid, and that's what's going on in New York and other places. It's really not even different than what was happening in Egypt and Tunisia. Is what's happening in Kansas City. But yes, there are some changes that could be made because, like Kelly was talking in New York about apologizing for going to McDonald's. I don't have a problem with McDonald's selling hamburgers or a phone company providing phone service. That's what corporations are supposed to do. What they're not supposed to do is control politics, and that's what they're doing. That's the big problem. People realize that voting doesn't have an effect because Congress and the Senate are bought and paid for by corporate money. And I think that a lot of people agree that is a central problem. And there is a very specific solution that could solve for that. We can pass an amendment that changes campaign finance law to disallow corporations to control politics. But that's not the only issue.
They've tried to do that a little bit,
taking lobbyists out? Is that what you're saying?
Lobbyists have too much access and too much influence. That's true. But campaign finance is not just about lobbyists. I mean, corporations, of course, they want to control who's in office and what vote they do, but those aren't people. It's citizens that should be controlling those. And right now, the citizens feel disenfranchised because the government isn't representing citizens. The issues that people care about right now, jobs, the economy, the environment,
education,
ending wars, decent schools, taking care of people who are helpless. Those issues aren't being addressed. Why aren't they being addressed? That's a kind of the big milieu.
The reason they're not being addressed is because those aren't the people in power. Those aren't the people with money. They're not the decision makers. You don't have, people with no health care, with no jobs that, they don't have a voice. And here, with Occupy Wall Street,
on that same regard, I'm not sure if I want to hire some hobo.
But they don't have a voice in that forum. So what do? They go out and
a hobo can vote.
What does voting do for a hobo?
What does voting do for me? I have a job, but I'm not in the 1%.
No.
Well, hobos are maybe the 1% too, but a different 1%.
But you're not a
it's
hobo.
The working class that we're talking about.
It's the middle.
Yeah, and not completely the middle. It expands into the lower class, and a lot of rich people feel the same way.
Yeah.
You've heard Warren Buffett. You've heard one of the co-founders of H&R Block come out in favor of raising his own taxes. It almost is counterintuitive, right? Seemingly, but even those people understand that the system is not working and something has to change.
Yeah.
What we have to ask ourselves is, why isn't it changing? If we all feel this way, so that's what's brought people out of their homes, and that's what's hopefully going to galvanize all of the working class people together to somehow figure out together how to fix the problem.
Now, we're running short on time, but the theory that I presented kind of earlier in the show, and maybe I told Gnurk off the air, was that I think a couple years ago, America said, God, we've got to change. We got to change something. Let's get Barack in there, and he can just give him hell. And Barack got in there. He was there for 2 years with basically the entire, he was there and the parents weren't home. He had the entire place to himself, right? He could do whatever he wanted.
Right.
He could pass whatever he wanted. Granted,
he worked on health care.
And he worked on
health
care.
That was a big thing to work on because, there was a huge obstacle, like rolling a boulder up a hill.
But I think people realized now that, well, crap. Now there's still no change. Like the wall, for instance, healthcare. He passed it. Now Senate says, the courts say unconstitutional. So, they want change. They want change. Now that they thought, okay, Obama's not going to do it. We've got to do something for ourselves now. We can't count on this guy to do it. Which is why I think that and I wouldn't have thought this a couple years ago. I think maybe chances are pretty slim, him being the president a second term. But that's more of a political stance. I think I want to keep you guys for another segment and talk more about the Kansas City aspect and maybe getting organized on this.